Welcome back to The Explainer. We're jumping right in today because we are tackling a massive, kind of frustrating irony in the agency world. So, outsourcing development is supposed to be your ultimate capacity solution, right? I mean, it's meant to save you time, let you scale your output, and protect those precious margins. But so often, handing off a project without clearly defined requirements turns that exact time-saving strategy into a massive margin-crushing rework trap. If you've ever felt like you're spending way more time managing an outsourced build than you would have spent just literally building it yourself, you are definitely in the right place. Let's unpack exactly how to fix that.
So you really have to wonder, why does outsourcing sometimes actually create more work? It's a total paradox. Well, the villain of our story here actually isn't bad coding, and it's not a lack of technical skill from your partner. The real villain? Ambiguity and developer assumptions. See, when project requirements are vague, incomplete, or just kind of left open to interpretation, developers have to fill in the blanks. They use their own assumptions just to keep the project moving. And let's be honest with ourselves. Those assumptions rarely match exactly what you or your client had in mind. The immediate results of that? Endless revision cycles that completely eat up any time or financial savings the outsourcing was supposed to create in the first place.
Get a load of this number, 68%. An absolutely staggering 68% of development rework is directly caused by incomplete functional requirements, not technical execution failures. I mean, really think about that for a second. More than 2/3 of the time you are sending a project back for revisions, it's not because your white label developer didn't know how to code it, it's because the ambiguity in the brief literally forced them to guess, and, well, they guessed wrong. This makes requirement definition the absolute highest impact area you can focus on to improve your outsourced projects. And that brings us to a massive mindset shift. White label partners are responsible for the quality. Agencies are responsible for the clarity. A truly dependable white label development partner, like Viral Chili, for example, is going to bring top-tier technical expertise and delivery discipline to the table every single time. But neither of those things replaces your obligation as the agency to define requirements thoroughly. Developers can't read minds. Making sure that development decisions can be made without guesswork is entirely on your shoulders. To defeat this assumption villain, you really need a solid framework. So here are the 5 pillars of specifications: functional requirements, design specs, technical environment, performance benchmarks, and content management. Defining these upfront is the ultimate game changer for your white label WordPress builds. Okay, let's dive straight into Pillar 1, Functional Requirements and Feature Specifications. This pillar dictates exactly what the website needs to do, leaving absolutely zero room for interpretation. To pull this off, you have to get incredibly concrete. It is just not enough to say, hey, we need a contact form. You need to document exactly how many fields that form has, where the submissions actually go, what confirmation the user sees, and if any third-party integrations need to catch that data. Same goes for e-commerce. Don't just ask for a store. Specify product categories, the exact checkout flow, specific payment gateways, and how order notifications are handled. Vague requests, they produce approximate implementations. Specific requests produce builds that nail the brief on the very first review. Moving right along, we have Pillar 2, Design Specifications and Brand Guidelines. Now, handing over a static PDF and calling it a day is pretty much a recipe for disaster. Approved mockups are great for showing the static look, but developers actually need interactive specs. You absolutely must define responsive expectations as specific breakpoints. You got to outline hover states, interaction states, animation timings, and give explicit guidance on what flexes and what stays fixed. When developers have complete specs, they make consistent decisions. When they just have mockups, they have to make individual judgment calls. And that is exactly when you end up with those frustrating, inconsistent results across different devices. Establishing context brings us to Pillar 3, Technical Environment and Integrations. This is all about the infrastructure. And let's be real, there is literally nothing worse or more deeply unfunny than discovering a catastrophic hosting incompatibility halfway through a build. I mean, that's the kind of mid-project nightmare that stalls timelines, totally wrecks budgets, and gives everyone gray hair. You have to nail this down up front. What's the PHP version? Are there WordPress version constraints? What about server limits and integrations? You need to specify every single third-party system the site talks to, the APIs being used, and the authentication methods. Gathering this context before development starts protects your project from super expensive discoveries down the road.
Next up is Pillar 4, Performance and Quality Benchmarks.
Subjective expectations are basically the arch nemesis of a smooth quality assurance phase. On one hand, you have these aspirational goals, like make it fast or make it accessible.
But on the other, you have measurable, concrete targets. Things like load time under 3 seconds on a standard mobile connection, or minimum Core Web Vitals scores, or a specific page speed insights threshold, and actual WCAG standards for accessibility. When you define performance as specific, measurable targets before the build begins, they completely transform from subjective arguments into verified, undeniable outcomes. And that brings us to our fifth and final pillar, content management and post-launch ownership. It is so incredibly easy to forget that the site ultimately belongs to the end users. To get this right, you really need to assess the client's technical confidence. A non-technical marketing person needs a completely different editorial interface than an in-house developer, right? You also need to define exactly which sections of the site need to be editable on a regular basis. And finally, make sure you are supporting their specific editorial workflows without them needing to call a developer every time they want to post an update. Providing this context allows a top-tier partner, like Viral Chili, to build CMS interfaces that genuinely serve the actual human beings using them every single day.
So, let's talk about why we do all of this. The payoff? Exponential ROI.
Look, if you're hearing all this upfront work and thinking, wow, that sounds like a ton of extra effort, you're totally right. It is. But the ROI here is not linear. Sure, pre-build, you are investing solid hours into defining requirement specs. But look at what happens next. The development team builds it correctly the first time with zero assumptions, which means post-build, you are saving multiple hours, sometimes literally weeks, of revisions, clarifications, and rework. A thorough brief that prevents just one major revision cycle pays back your time investment many, many times over. Your projects run faster, your clients are thrilled, and your margins stay exactly where you want them. So I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative question to chew on. Are you delegating development, or are you just outsourcing your assumptions? The best white label partners, like Viral Chili, absolutely thrive on your clarity. The quality of the final product is determined just as much by what you define before it starts as by what the partner actually builds. Take ownership of that clarity. Define these 5 pillars thoroughly, completely eliminate the guesswork, and I guarantee you'll get that efficient, stress-free outsourcing experience you've been chasing all along. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you on the next one.